we as a society just have this pressure that you're not allowed to try new things. You're not allowed to do things and then decide you don't want to do those things. But really, that's kind of the whole point of life, is to try things and have experience and do the thing that serves the most amount of people and also is something you really love to do.
Have you ever felt like you've outgrown your own life, but fear, guilt, or doubt is holding you back from stepping into something new? Well, today we're diving into reinvention after major life changes, whether it's a breakup, career shift, move, or motherhood. We'll talk about the signs you've outgrown your current life, the fears that come up with stepping into a new identity, and the mindset shifts, daily habits, and support systems that will help women rebuild confidence and reclaim their power. If you're ready to take the first tiny step toward the life you were meant for, this episode is for you. I'm excited about today's guest. Welcome, Courtney, to the show. Courtney is a multi-passionate entrepreneur and founder of Social Script and One Day songwriter and co-creator of Big Bass Fishing Academy and Force the Door Marketing. She helps people transform everyday skills into profitable, purpose-driven ventures. Her book, You Are the Sum of Your Last Two Moves, shows how small, intentional actions can compound exponential growth. Courtney calls it the practical way to quantum leap, and she's on a mission to teach others how to build momentum, make aligned decisions, and create a life that reflects their fullest potential. Welcome to today's show, Courtney.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It was really interesting when I read your bio and just talking about regrowth of life, because that's what kind of this whole podcast is about. And the theme of the podcast, because at this age now, we're stepping into a new phase of our life. Can you tell me a little bit about your book?
Yeah, so my book is basically how I uncovered the Fibonacci sequence, which, without getting too into the math, is just a sequence that is found in everything in nature, everything in life. But this Fibonacci sequence is found in leaves, it's found in pine cones, and it's found in our DNA. And I hit a really big stuck point in my own career and life. And I had just a flash moment where I thought, well, if the Fibonacci sequence is in everything else, like maybe it can help me in my own life. And the equation is simple. It's just, it all starts at 0. You add 1, and then 0 plus 1 equals 1. And then you add the next two numbers together to get the next number in the equation. So 0 plus 1 equals 1. 1 plus 1 equals 2. 2 plus 1 equals 3, and so on. And so I came to this conclusion that all of us are just the sum of our last two moves. And that's really what this whole book is about. If you're not happy with your life, if you want to reinvent yourself, all you have to do is do one new thing.
Really interesting, because I feel also that I'm in a constant evolving stage of my life, or I constantly want to move, but committing to those small little tiny habits give you momentum force. And really align with then the character you are, right? You're a character in everybody's story. What are some common signs you've outgrown your current life?
Yeah, I think a big one is when you feel numb and you're just genuinely not happy to wake up every morning. You feel like you're going through the motions. That is the biggest clear sign, especially being a mom. I'm a mom of 3 under 3, and there had been so many moments where I just dreaded being present in the moment. That's a huge red flag that there's something wrong.
Why do people feel guilty for wanting something different?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it has to do with the roles other people set for us. You know, in our society, you go to college, you get a degree, and then you're supposed to do that for the rest of your life. And it's funny you say that, because I was somebody who really had a hard time figuring out what I wanted to do. And my grandpa, after I wanted to start a business, he had said one thing that really stuck. And he said, "Oh, are you going to quit that too?" And it stung, but it made me realize, like, that is what a lot of people think when you try new things. And so we as a society just have this pressure that you're not allowed to try new things. You're not allowed to do things and then decide you don't want to do those things. But really, that's kind of the whole point of life, is to try things and have experience and do the thing that serves the most amount of people and also is something you really love to do.
And I had 3 kids within 3.5 years, so I totally
So
relate
you
to
know, yeah.
I know what it
Yeah.
was like, and it was so funny. I remember, just not to be sounding ungrateful, I was very
Yeah.
happy, 3 beautiful children, they're healthy, they're happy, but I was like, "Is this all I am now? Is their mom? Like, is this the character I'm supposed to be?" And I fought with that for many years because I just felt I needed to be more than just somebody's mom. But what I've realized also in that season of my life, that just took more of a priority. And I'm very thankful for the habits that I learned throughout that process. And now my kids are older, it gives me that time to reflect and see, well, where do I want to pivot? So there is light at the end of the tunnel, Courtney. I
Nice.
promise you. It is so physically demanding and overwhelming, but it does take a village to raise kids, and we don't have those villages anymore. When it comes to feeling guilty for wanting something different, what are also some fears when it comes into stepping into a new identity?
One thing I see all the time, whether people feel like they have big confidence or not, at the very core, most of us are really scared of being judged. And I've seen that with not just moms, but high-level professionals, people who have made something big of themselves, scared to post a video on TikTok with a proven plan and strategy. And it's because they don't want to be perceived a different way or be misunderstood. I struggle with this. I sometimes overshare in my content because I want people to know that this is what I mean. But really, the beauty is that some people just want to misunderstand you. And it's about figuring out a way that you can feel okay being misunderstood, because you will be. There are some people that just genuinely don't want to see you succeed. And knowing that those people don't have great internal things going on in their lives. That's kind of how you have to look at it. And it really is. It's just the fear of perception, and people will have a perception about you for sure when you're on the right track.
Yeah, exactly. And the projection. And then your definition of trying something new and the success of what that is maybe, hey, I'll try this. That's what I said with this podcast. I was very vocal on my Instagram that I'm going to try something new and I'm committing to 1 year and I'm
I
going to
love
try it
that.
out. Right. And that
Yeah.
way, my measure of success is after the year I do this podcasting. If it still serves me and I feel good about it and I want to continue, then I will. And if not, I can check that off my list. 85-year-old
Yeah.
Mandeep can look back and say, I even did a podcast for 1 year.
So important too, because that's what my mentor did. He decided he'd do one video a week on YouTube for 10 years. Now he has over 1 million followers. It's an input goal. I love that.
What is the role community or support play in your rebranding and rebuilding?
I was in foster care when I was really young. My grandparents got me out, but because of that, I always had this internal motivation that I had to do everything on my own, by myself, nobody's gonna come and save me. And so that has really bled into my entrepreneurship until I realized, and I got into a mentorship program, how much I needed other people to believe in me and that I could borrow their energy to accomplish the things I wanted to do. I mean, I wasn't even somebody who thought I'd even write a book back in June, and now I've written 3 books. And that's purely because of mentorship and their belief in what I had inside of me. I think too, a big community role is I use the gym daycare to drop off my kids, and I get 2.5 hours. So I work out for 30 minutes, and then the last 2 hours I do some deep work on my business. And that is a huge part. Also my husband. So he's a firefighter, and so his schedule is really partly why I became an entrepreneur, because you can't have a normal 9-to-5 job with a firefighter. And so he works 48 hours. Those 48 hours are miserable. And then he's home for 4 days. But on those 4 days, he'll give me time to work. And that's how I get stuff done. He's doing car nap and watching the kids right now while I'm on this podcast.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. Surrounding yourself with the right people who will lift you up.
Yeah.
And everybody provides some sort of support. The people at your gym's daycare is providing that support, because that's a reality. And I think sometimes, I know I listen to podcasts by men, And they're like, oh, you just got to wake up at 4 a.m. Well, if your baby is teething, sir, there's nobody waking up at 4 a.m. because you're mentally exhausted. So the challenges we as women face are definitely much different and difficult. But I also think there's a lot of strength in what we can do. And I'm sure if you look back at your journey and being in foster care, that's really ignited such a deep passion. And for you to write 3 books, that speaks a lot about your character. Now, we're going to go back to the book. You are the sum of your last 2 moves. What does that actually mean, and how can somebody transform their life using the sum of their last 2 moves?
Yeah, so the first thing you have to do is a deep reflection, and it doesn't have to be a long thing, but you're going to get out a piece of paper, you're going to write down every job that you've ever had, any unique experiences, good or bad. And on the list of the jobs, you're going to write down what were your roles, and then on top of that, what did people constantly come to you for? So, for example, even though I wasn't the marketing manager or anything like that, people regularly came to me to create brochures for our companies, especially in the nonprofit. And it's only because I learned the skill of Canva design by being an RA in college. That skill then compounded into just about every job after learning that one new skill. I always became that person. And then that launched me into being able to create meta ads and Instagram ads for businesses. That was like the first thing I started doing is meta advertising. By you doing a reflection of, okay, what things are you good at? What are things people are already coming to you? That's a clear indication that those are the things that you should increase on. After you have that inventory of your experiences, what you're good at, then you look at, okay, what is just one skill that if I learned and mastered this, I could combine it with one thing on that list and create something huge. And so an example of this was I was a music therapist and I had a songwriting intervention where we'd speed write a song and only purely for the sake of I only had an hour group time in the psych hospitals. And so I noticed there that people had really transformative experiences doing a speed songwriting session. And then I had already built a course for somebody else. And I thought, maybe I can build a course for myself teaching songwriting. And then that's how I created One Day Songwriter. And so sometimes it might sound like, oh, well, you had something like songwriting. Of course, you could make a business out of that. But to me, songwriting and that intervention, that didn't feel like marketable or anything to me because it's a skill that I have. And oftentimes we overlook the skills that we have. After you've done that inventory, go and ask like a couple people that are close to you, what they think you're good at. That's going to be another clear sign of that's the direction you need to go.
With that, and I'm very careful on who I share my big ideas with too, because not everybody's going to be supportive like you touched upon. How do you navigate the opinions of others during this reinvention?
Yeah, I think sometimes, especially if you don't have supportive people in your life, you find some other people who are supportive. Most of the time, your family and friends are not the people that are going to be cheerleading you on. And so really going into like Facebook groups to bounce ideas off, getting into a mentorship program of some type. You know, the big thing that some people think that mentorship is a soft light thing to have in entrepreneurship. And I think it's necessary because in that group, I didn't realize that I even had good ideas. And that was something that the peers in my group thought of about me. They're like, wow, you could just go and help anybody get unstuck in their business. I didn't think that of myself. But having people interact with me on that business level and being able to view me differently than people who are in my everyday life, they were able to see that I couldn't see.
I'm going to share back to the journey of I really believe in mentorship because I want to learn from somebody who's done what my end goal is. And I want to surround myself. I always say you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with. So if in that 2 hours you're hanging out with people that are collaborating with people who are on the same trajectory or in the same space, your energy naturally is going to bounce off one another and it's going to help you grow. I really do think some sort of guidance, mentorship, and it also helps you stay accountable because with this change, you're reworking the patterns in your brain that are very comfortable doing the same thing that you've been doing for the last 20 years and doesn't want to change. What is the mind shift that allows women to be able to make that pivot?
A belief in themselves. I think most of us just don't believe that we're capable of some things, which is wild because we all gave birth and that expanded us as people. It's funny too, because a lot of times our society is so structured on being successful and then having kids. But I actually think if more women had the kids and then decided to do, not for everybody, but might be a hot take, but that if you had the babies, raised them 3 years and up, and then started focusing on what you really wanted to do, you have so much potential unlocked just by raising those kids, and you get to rediscover yourself, and you just have more capacity. Like, I look back at myself of who I was pre-kids. I could not do the things I'm doing now. And technically I should have no time. But back then I had all the time in the world and couldn't accomplish anything. I think kids help you become the person you want to be.
Yeah, and tapping into that strength of, hey, I was able to raise 2 children and wherever you are in life and saying, okay, I've gotten them to this point. Now, how do I find things that serve me? And they watch you. So they watch you. That's really important. And I think also the other thing with the confidence aspect of it, because I think about my own kids, everything they have learned and has been taught, whether by society, friends, at home, TV, whatever it is. If you have been taught about and been told through your childhood, you're never going to amount to anything, you're never going to do anything great in life, that stays with you. And so when you're trying to do something different, whether you realize it or not, you're listening to that voice inside who's told you for many years you're not capable of it or you're not worthy of it. And so that's why I think the reflection part is really important, and taking that pen and paper out and writing down things that you are good at and building on that trust to take yourself to the next level.
Oh, 100%. And I think too, like, if you don't have that belief, then you need to find somebody who can believe in you during that reinvention point, because I didn't believe in myself and I actually had to literally borrow somebody else's belief just to get there.
It's the mindset too. It's even if you just go back to the book, like, I think I can,
Yeah.
the train that says it, even if nobody else believes in you, just saying to yourself, I think I can, I think I
Yeah.
can, I think I can. And that positive manifestation, I think, will definitely help you. What are small ways or daily ways one person can rebuild their confidence in changing themselves?
I think having a positive goal of input. Everyone's all about goals of like, I want to hit 10,000 followers or I want to make this amount of sales. Rather, what you already had touched on is I'm going to record one podcast maybe a month or one podcast every week. I'm going to do it for a year and see what happens. Those goals of input are so positive because we're working on doing something, and that's what yields fruit is the work. And you have to just be so unattached to the outcome, because you're limiting yourself when you have an outcome too. Like, you might want 10,000 followers, but if you detach, you might get 1 million. Like, you don't know. And so to give you an example, just on like the health side, after having 3 kids and, I had like both my grandparents who raised me passed and then my bio dad all within those 3 years. So I had a lot of like, yeah, thank you. And I had a lot of like just stress, as I'm sure other people will be able to relate. Like, I emotionally ate and like had so much issue with the mental health because I was just focused on getting my business set up, because I literally started my business right before all that happened. And I heard somebody say, they wasn't even directed to me, but to somebody else, they said, if you just choose to eat fruit and vegetables and everything grown from the earth for 7 days, see how your body feels. And I took that and I did that and I felt amazing. And I lost 10 pounds. And that's something that I had just said, okay, I'm going to restrict sugar. I probably would have failed and had like a brownie that night, versus like I did an input goal of, okay, for 7 days, I'm going to just nourish my body with fruits and vegetables that are grown from the earth. Like, that's so much more positive. So the way that you make change is you have to make the change positive and doable. And then I didn't say I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. But because I did it for the 7 days, now I've made that a practice where I do that Monday through Friday. And then on the weekends, there's birthday parties, and I detach from that outcome during those days.
You learned so much about yourself, and you didn't have that hard, oh, it has to be done by this age and this, like that internal pressure you put on ourselves, or we put on ourselves as women. But just saying, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to see what happens and reflect on it. What are some beliefs women need to unlearn when it comes to success?
The biggest one is what success even means, because you could look at somebody and say what they did was a failure. And nothing that you do is ever going to be a failure because you did something. And so some people look at they're comparing their success to other people. And so instead of comparing your success to other people, like they've had a completely different life, different skill sets. So if you look at somebody like, Alex Hermosi, and you think you want to get the same type of success that they have, well, you don't see all the like sales pitches and sales calls they did to become a master at sales prior. And it's the same with like everyday people. It's like you might create a podcast, but they don't see behind the scenes that you've had so much experience talking to people off camera. So it naturally makes sense. Where if I started a podcast, it might be harder, And so just being able to realize that success is being just a % better than who you were a day before.
I love my little quotes, but if you can't laugh at the person you were 5 years ago, then you're not growing.
Yeah, that's
If
so
you look
true.
back, right? So if we're heading into 2026, what was on your 2021 New Year's resolution? And did you stick to it? Is it really a firm part of your life now? I'm a definite believer, evolution, reflecting, growing as that person, and just trying new things. What habits quietly, though, keep people stuck?
One is they stop learning. That is the number one. Being someone who also just used to hate reading because society and the school system made me hate reading, I didn't read. And that kept me stuck for so long until I realized that I didn't have to have an outcome to reading. So I was I didn't realize until an adult that I was slightly dyslexic, and reading and comprehension was really hard. And then when I overcame that and realized, oh, I can just read at my own pace, there's no goal, then I enjoyed reading. And that's been a way that I've been able to learn so much. I think people who don't read often get stuck because they're not opening their minds to other people's ideas and viewpoints. And ultimately, when you look at everybody who is successful, all they do is read all the time. That's a big one.
And
Yeah.
I think also I'll add, I'm not the biggest reader, so I'll listen to the audiobook, which is good, right? Incorporate, but I also like listen. I like reading or like fiction books because that not all books have to be about bettering yourself and doing all these amazing things. Sometimes fiction books and autobiographies I find really cool because I can tap into that person's creativity and how they were overcoming things, or fiction itself just gets me in a creative flow state of understanding. I always walk away learning a little bit more about how to overcome issues in a different lens through that creativity. I don't know if that makes sense, but
100% does. Yeah. I mean, I write songs, and like technically you could look at that as a waste of time, but it's not, because you're finding a way to be expressive creatively and enjoy yourself, which is part of life.
Yes, exactly. What are some areas of life? So now, for example, I'm going to give you 2 scenarios. There's
Okay.
Courtney, who's got 3 young kids. Okay. And she's got a business. She's on podcasts. She's written 3 books. What are some areas of life that are going to be the easiest that you are doing right now to take yourself to the next level?
One is going to be social media. A lot of people like Gary Vee, and there's somebody named Adlai Kinsman who said personal brand is going to be worth more than Bitcoin. And that's 100% true, because in this age of AI, when everything is becoming fake, being your authentic self is going to be very valuable. So really focusing on just putting myself out there on social media, that's just the natural step for me to grow the business. And then also learning to have some stillness in my life, I think will make life easier. I actually had somebody tell me to just take a breath and like, don't do anything next week. And I said, that's going to be really hard. But it makes you realize like you do need rest points and rest time to have those reflections. And that's where a lot of breakthroughs come from. So I'm going to give myself a rest time, even though I don't want to.
What advice would you give to, say, the middle-aged woman, my age, 46, and kids have kind of grown up? Maybe I was a stay-at-home mom for quite a few years. What are ways now that I can identify what I want to do and be, and how do I transform into that person?
Yeah, I'd say what things do you miss doing first? What are the things that like you did in your 20s that you're like, man, I wish I could go back and just go to karaoke night or whatever it is. And maybe I want to go to that painting class. I think it's about like, when we look at kids and we want to develop a kid, we put them in, like, we have them try basketball, we have them try baseball, all the sports. This is your time to do that for yourself now. Like, join an adult soccer program, join all the activities, and like feed everything back into yourself. And that's where those breakthroughs are going to happen, because you might see a need of, like, there's businesses where people are now, they have a business of just going on walks with people. Somebody had to create that idea, realizing like how much need in their community of having a connection. And so naturally, just like through experiencing life again, you'll see where the needs are in your community. And that's where you're going to build something great.
Identifying a need and solving the problem, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the people who you're solving to don't even know they have that problem, but it's your job as a good marketing expert to identify it for them. Really interesting. So looking back on all the women you've worked with, what's the one mindset shift you wish everyone would make when starting over?
I would say that when you start, know that there is 0% chance you can possibly fail. All of us go in with such doubt, but if you consistently just take one step every single day towards whatever goal that you have, you will achieve it. It might not look exactly how you wanted it to be, but it will be better than what you expected it to be.
When we go back to your book, what are some chapters that you would like to highlight?
Chapter 1 is where everything really starts. So it's a progression. So you can't go to chapter 2 without doing chapter 1. There's an exercise in each chapter at the end to get you onto your journey of finding your stuck point and how to get out of it. Each chapter has a second part to it. There is one being emotionally stuck, career stuck, spiritually stuck, all of those. And then chapter 9 is kind of the hidden gem, where I found while writing my book, I was doing more research on the Fibonacci sequence. And I found that if you square two numbers next to each other and add them together, they jump you ahead in the sequence. And it was a huge breakthrough because it proved quantum leaping, that quantum leaping is a real thing. It's not this like metaphor in business. It's actually something you can do. And so when you find a multiplier, which is a mentor, a new method, it can square what you are already doing. And instead of having to take these baby steps to achieve your goal, you can go like that overnight. And that's where you see these like overnight successes. It's really they found somebody to multiply what they were already doing and jump them ahead in their sequence.
Okay, cool. Well, Courtney, what is next for you?
Well, that is a good question. Somebody said, like, being multi-passionate, they said at the core of what I'm doing, I need to create an offer that combines everything that I've been doing into one thing, which is helping people just get unstuck and learn to express themselves again creatively. So I'm actually looking at creating a retreat to create like stillness for people and unlock that creativity in them in a safe environment that also allows them to bring their family and connect their business with their family life. So that's something I'm looking at. But really, in the meantime, as I build towards that, I'm looking at ways to just automate a lot of the work so that I can just focus on creating ideas, because that's what I ultimately love to do.
Yeah, that's really empowering, and then having that space for women to have just that pauseness and then going through that journey. Because I think if you are a woman listening to this right now and you are feeling stuck, I really recommend, I will put in the show notes, Courtney's information, her website where you can reach out to her. Do you work one-to-one with clients?
I do.
You
Yeah,
do.
I
Okay.
primarily do one-on-one. I'm looking into group coaching because I do think there's a big benefit in the group coaching as well.
Yeah, because then the group can run off each other's synergies too, which is
Yes.
cool. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think if you are feeling stuck in whatever it is you do, and it could be really at any age, right? Whether your kids are young, maybe your kids are off to school now, or maybe you're at my age where the kids are pretty much adults and you're reinventing yourself and being able to find your passion, whether you're tapping into old things you did or new things you did, I think is really important. Today, we explored what it takes to reinvent yourself after major changes, how to recognize when you've outgrown your current life, navigate fear and guilt, and take small intentional steps towards the person you're meant to become. Remember, the transformation doesn't happen overnight. It starts with one tiny move, one mindset shift, or one habit you choose to change today. Take what resonates, be compassionate with yourself, and trust the process. Every small step compounds into meaningful growth, and with each action, you're reclaiming your confidence, your power, and your light. The journey to your next chapter starts now. Take that first step. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you share it with someone. Subscribe to this podcast and continue the conversation on Instagram or TikTok at Her Energy Unlocked Podcast. I cannot wait to hear from you. Until next time, remember, your energy is yours to reclaim, your story is yours to rewrite, and your next chapter is waiting. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.